Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Tom Tobin, president of the club, and we're thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30. Come out and join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we're having on our local community and the world, visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary connects the world.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. I'd just like to point out something this morning. This was the Rotary float in the Rose Parade this year. I just happened to catch it as it was going by, and we had it recorded, so I got to back it up and take pictures of it. So I just want everybody to take a look and see what Rotary had in the parade. Our invocation this morning is by Father Joe Boisel.
I watched the Rose Bowl parade on television. I don't know about you. Yeah, that's what I did. Okay. This is a prayer attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Will you pray with me? Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Thank you, Father Joe. Since I haven't been here nobody was here for 2 or 3 weeks. Then I decided to stay in bed last week. So just to see if I remember it, I'll lead us in the pledge and the four-way test. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So far, so good. I can do the next thing, count to 4. And the four-way test of the things that we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will build goodwill and better friendships. And fourth, will be beneficial to all concerned. And now to lead us in song, Chris Barker.
Good morning, everyone.
Here, Chris, let me give you a
Good morning, everyone. This beautiful morning, we're going to be singing God Bless America. So, when I figure out what song we're going to sing, pretty much whenever I see James Field, I greet him with God Bless America, like I did this morning. And he's like, okay, are you just telling me that or are we singing that? So, and look, he's queuing it on up right now.
Look how fast he is getting them.
Wow.
We can do school days. You can do school days someday.
I bet we could even sing it without the lyrics. I think we got this.
Yeah, which one?
God Bless America.
God bless America. Okay.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. All right, thank you, everybody.
And to introduce our guests, Chris Barker.
Good morning again. So we have a few guests with us today. If they could please stand when I announce them so we can give them a warm Rotary welcome. We have Mohammed Jabari, a guest of Liz. Thank you for joining us today. And then we have our Hudson Service Learning class. And there is Jamie Cosman, one of the co-teachers, and a couple ladies that I believe we will get that will be introduced to us later. Thank you very much. And I saw Jane Howington sneak in here, City Director. Jane, thanks for joining us again. Everyone enjoyed today's meeting. Oh, and our videographer, and I have a feeling that our President Tom Tobin will be announcing that as well. But thank you very much.
And now our president, Tom Tobin.
All right. Thank you. Feel like I'm leading a political convention here. All right, just a few things. We've got a busy day this morning, but just a few things here. I wanted to mention that one of the next things on our schedule is the four-way speech contest coming up on March 11th. And Jim Ahern sent us a note just the other day to tell us in preparation for that, I guess the folks at Western Reserve Academy are really upping their game. They have like, how many, do you remember having, was it like 25? 45 students that are, they've kind of built it into their curriculum. So 45 students are going to compete at Western Reserve Academy. They're going to have like their own playoffs, and they're going to bring their very best. So I'm sorry Phil Herman wasn't here to hear that, because, you know, going to give him a kick in the shorts to up the. Yeah, that's right. We want to give a respectable. We got to have good competition there. All right, number two. I will mention one thing because the student government at the high school, and this is what you get when you have a school board member as your president of your Rotary Club. They asked me to make the club aware of one event that they have coming up. It is a dance marathon. They're calling it the first annual Explorathon, which will take place this Sunday, January 19th. It's a fundraiser for Akron Children's Hospital Miracle Network. And I know Bill Wooldridge has the Akron Children's Hospital near and dear to his heart, so I'm sure he's going to be dancing his heart out there. So. And maybe some of the rest of you will come and watch him and, you know, cheer for him. All right, so there's that. Number three, we have a board meeting today immediately after this meeting. So all club members are invited to attend, all Rotarians. And then, let's see, number four, could I ask Mr. Cosman and Ms. Amier to step up and introduce some folks from the service learning class to us? Come on up. Whoa. I know, that was bad. I could be thrown out for that. Jamie, you can go first? Sure. All right, great.
Good morning, everyone. So first of all, I know I did thank you, Marty, and I thanked you last time for all who came in for the policy project and the RAK projects. I wanted to make sure everybody who is here got their thank you cards from our students. I also want to preface this by saying, although we encourage them and ask them to write really thoughtful, good cards, I make no promises, and we did not spell check them. So it's about lessons that they will hopefully continue to apply as we continue to go. I also wanted to let you know we are actually, believe it or not, starting our interviews for next year's class next week. If you know any kids, grandkids, friends, kids, or anything like that who would be good for us, that little nudge can be pretty big for some people. In terms of our students, I'm going to actually introduce Abby, who her volunteer site last semester was at Access Women's Shelter, and I had the pleasure of seeing her project, which was truly outstanding.
Hi, my name is Abby Laughlin, and next year I'll either be attending Miami University or Ohio State University. I haven't decided yet, and hopefully majoring in Spanish and international business. But I just wanted to say that deciding to apply to service learning was probably one of the best decisions I could have made last year because of all the opportunities I've gotten to reach out of my comfort zone. including my site project that I did for Access Women's Shelter. So I was able to do a Polar Express party for all of the kids. There's about 23 kids that were at the shelter at the time. And at the party, we just did crafts, we watched the Polar Express, and I was able to raise enough money to get every kid a present, along with every family. So for the families, I got like a board game, a gingerbread house, things that would bring them together as a family. And then at the end of the party, I was able to surprise all of them with the presents. And it is truly one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my entire life, and it is something that I will never forget. And I'm just truly so grateful for Service Learning for giving me all of these opportunities and for giving me some of my best friends that I didn't even know before the class. But thank you so much for your support, because I have grown so much as a person, and I feel that I am confident going into the real world as an adult that will give back to the community and is a community servant.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Amier, and I will be introducing Evan today. He was at Ledgeview Elementary School. I knew I was going to do that. And before I bring him up, I do want to say thank you to everyone who did come see the policy projects for Mr. Bach and myself. The kids were really nervous to begin, and I heard all about it, and then afterward, the reviews that we got back about being able to present in front of Rotary members and making it much more professional was really very helpful for them. So I'm going to turn it over to Evan now.
Good morning, Rotarians. My name's Evan. This year, I was fortunate enough to spend my first semester at Ledgeview Elementary School, where I got to meet a lot of great kids from the Nordonia Public City Schools. It was really nice. It was good for me to get out of the bubble, the Hudson bubble, and get to see what a lot of other kids are living with and growing up in. For my site project, I got to spend time with a first grader named Cooper, and his issue was he liked to fall asleep in class a lot and not participate. So I said, if you can make it through the day, we can go on a walk at the end of the day, and we can talk, and we can talk about Fortnite, because that was his thing, the video game Fortnite. Yeah. So I formed a really great connection with him, and I really grew as a person. I'd like to thank everyone who came in to listen to our policy projects and our RAKs. It was really helpful to hear the feedback and grow as a presenter and to really just grow as a person this year in service learning. Thank you.
Questions? I have one thing for Evan. I understand we learned last week that Evan is an Eagle Scout, so to kill two birds with one stone. I would like to shine a light on some of the Eagle Scouts in our community and the service that they provide to our community. And so I asked Evan if he would just tell us a little bit about his experience there.
So my experience with Eagle Scouts is it's a lot of paperwork, but it's definitely worth it. So my project was I replaced some benches at Barlow Park that were rotten. They were kind of falling over along that walking trail. So a lot of what the basic project format is, you start with a proposal, and you get that approved, and you write another proposal, and you get that approved. So it's a lot of approvals, a lot of signatures, but it's really rewarding in the end. And I think the management that you learn from doing the project, it really prepares you for the real world, and that's one of the most beneficial parts of the Eagle Scout project.
I think I heard you say when you were going through that approval process, the first few didn't go as you know, they didn't just sail right through.
No.
You kind of got rejections on the first few, and then you had to come up with something alternative, plan B, C, D, whatever.
Yeah.
That's great.
So benches were plan D. Yeah.
Plan D. Okay. And which troop are you with, Evan?
321.
Oh, that's our troop. Okay. Okay, great. And let's see.
Did you also mention where you're looking at going to school?
Oh yeah. I'm deciding between University of Chicago and Case Western. So. I've studied computer science and economics.
And play some football.
Here's career advice right here. Go to Chicago. Yeah. And I did want to ask the question, service learning class again, how many students are we expecting will there'll be places for next year? How many are in service learning right now? Mr. Cosman?
Yeah, we have 90 students.
Okay.
It's 3 classes of about 30 each. We have 60 kids, approximately 60 students in the morning, and then 30 in the afternoon. We have our site needs are heavier in the morning times, so that's why we decided to place classes that way.
So that's nearly a quarter of the entire senior class is in service learning.
Yeah, that's yes.
Okay, interesting. Anything else?
And we are always blown away by the applicants as well as the actual follow through. I mean, you see them every month.
Actually, I did want to ask one other question. Is it difficult? I know a lot of the sites that you have are rollover from year to year, and the same places, different students. But do you have places for? You have need for additional sites from time to time?
We always are kind of looking to expand, especially if it's outside of what we are already offering.
Okay.
So it's usually probably 2 or 3 sites a year that we'll add brand new.
Okay.
For instance, a handful of years ago, we added Hudson Montessori as the opportunity to show a different educational experience from what most kids are familiar with. So yes, we're kind of always looking to expand. We just actually moved into, for the first time, the Boy Scouts of America. We've got a student who just started there last week. So we're not actively seeking a ton of new sites, but we do actively seek a small number.
But if Rotarians have suggestions, they should bring that to you.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
And then you can evaluate and see if they make sense.
Yeah, Streetsboro Food Pantry is one of our newer sites as well. I think this is our 2nd year there. So we're always looking for those local places that are doing really good stuff. Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, I found the website. So
For the
yeah. Okay, so it's in 4 days.
Oh.
It's supporting the Miracle Network, and there's information about that at Akron Jones Hospital. And let's see if I can. Okay, it's in the paper. We'll send the link out, and you can register, get your dancing shoes on, dance all night. Ron, I heard, could go for hours and hours and hours. So we'll send this link out, but it's an effort by the students to raise money and also bring a kind of a fun event to the community. So we'll send that out.
You know, our kids are always doing lots of great things. I was there yesterday for a blood drive that they had at the high school, and I'm always blown away by how service-minded they are. Hey, I did want to mention one other thing too that came into my purview this week. We'd accumulated some food that I think I brought food home that my wife didn't want. So she collected it and we sent it on to the Hudson Food Pantry, which is an organization that we sponsor through this club. Hudson Community Service Association, Ron, that's the name of the organization that we are a member of. Ron is our primary representative to it, and they're involved with the food pantry at Rejoice Lutheran Church, which is on Stowe Road. It's a very nice situation. It's one where clients are able to kind of go there quietly, without a lot of, they're able to pull around the back of the church. They go in, there's a room where all the food is. They are allowed to essentially shop for the things that they want. They're not just handed a bag of pre-selected food. And it's very nice. And I just think you all should be aware that this is in the community and it's something that we support. And I'm glad it's here. Finally, I would like to introduce our featured speaker this week. I don't have a thing for you, George, but I guess, oh, no, I'm going to introduce Evan to give the introduction. I apologize. Evan, thank you.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians. All right, so this week we continue our speaker series, Vocational Service in Action. We have the opportunity to learn more about what each of us are, or some of us are doing independently outside of Rotary. And just to give you a little bit more of a backdrop, there's really 5 avenues of service in Rotary. There's community service, club service, international service, youth service, and vocational service. So this month we're focusing on vocational service. And just a few pieces of advice or opportunities that you all can take action on your vocational service. Number 1, host an event for business development and professional networking. Number 2, offer career advice and counseling. And number 3, inspire the next generation. So I think that those are all great opportunities that we can make a big impact outside of our time just in the Rotary Club meetings. So last week we heard from Elizabeth Kwolek and Patrick Shearer. They did awesome presentations, and it was wonderful learning a little bit more about what they're up to. Today we have the opportunity to highlight somebody in our club that often is involved with coordinating speakers. He's the speaker chair, and it'll be a good opportunity to get him from behind the scenes to behind the microphone. So I'm going to give a quick introduction here, and then we'll get started. So George Snyder is a civic volunteer and a retired CEO. Since his retirement, Since his retirement as president and CEO of the worldwide Sanford Rose Associates Executive Search Network, George Schneider has held leadership positions with several Northern Ohio civic and nonprofit organizations. In the civic arena, George is currently a member of the executive committee and immediate past chair of the board of trustees of the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad. Serving in the latter capacity from 2010 through 2015. He is also a mentor for Jumpstart Inc., a Cleveland-based business accelerator. A past president of the Rotary Club of Hudson. That was in 2009 and 2010 that George was the president of our club. Excuse me. He is currently the program chair and investment committee chair of our Hudson Rotary Foundation as well. He also served from 2012 to 2015 as a member of the City of Hudson Economic Growth Board and was a program co-chair for Leadership Akron's New Endeavors for Experienced Talent program in 2014. Previously, George guided the robust expansion of Sanford Rose Associates Executive Search from its U.S. base operations into Asia and Europe. The system, now headquartered in Dallas, includes over 65 independently owned offices worldwide. A graduate of Yale University, George is a trustee emeritus of Old Trail Country Day School in Bath, and a life member of the Society of the Cincinnati, a fraternal organization founded by General George Washington following the Revolutionary War. He and his wife reside in Hudson. Without further ado, I'd like to call up George Schneider to give us his vocational impact.
Thank you, Evan, for my life's history. Good morning, Rotarians. Welcome to our guests, and always the service learning teachers and students, always good to see you. I've been a member of this wonderful club for about 13 and a half years now, and it's nice to finally introduce myself. Evan did give you a sort of a large, broad picture of my civic history and my work history. And what I'm going to try to do for the next few minutes is to zero in on a couple of aspects of that and talk about some commonalities and similarities that I have experienced in some of the endeavors that I have undertaken. I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, which at the time was a city of about 85,000 people on the banks of the Ohio River. My mother was a homemaker, and my father was a small business owner and a Rotarian. And father would invite me to their father-son luncheon every year. About Rotary, I was not too sure. From the viewpoint of a very cynical 10-year-old, they sang these really corny songs at the start of each meeting. No offense, Chris. But on the other hand, the members got to attend the annual district conference each year at the Greenbrier Hotel in White Sulphur Springs, which I thought was not too shabby. Summers, I worked at my father's store. And the one thing that I did know for sure was that I never wanted to go to work for my father full time. So I did the opposite. After college, I joined Procter & Gamble at its Cincinnati headquarters, holding positions in advertising, brand management, and public affairs. Some 15 years later, I was convinced by a search firm to join B.F. Goodrich in Akron, where I served as Director of Corporate Public Relations and later Marketing Director for the BFG Chemical Group in Independence. And I will say that Bill Woolridge at the time, or for much of that time, was Senior Vice President of Finance, so Bill and I worked quite closely together. At age 50, I decided to leave the corporate rat race and at last become an entrepreneur, just like my father. I looked at a number of business opportunities I eventually concluded were not a match for my own specific skills and capabilities. Then I learned that the Sanford Rose Associates Executive Search Network was up for sale by its founder, who wanted to retire. It was a franchise system that had seen, quite frankly, better days. But I believed that I could provide some communications, marketing, and general management skills that could help revitalize the enterprise. I acquired it after long, sometimes contentious negotiations. Over the next 13 years, my staff and I built the system, as you heard Evan say, from roughly 40 franchised offices to 65, with our single largest franchise in Singapore and our second largest franchise in San Francisco. Each office specialized in an industry or occupation that was familiar to the owner, ranging from pharmaceuticals to banking to consumer products and more. Search is focused on higher level management and executive positions. The system, now based in Dallas since I sold it, turned 60 years old this year and is one of the 10 largest search operations in the USA. What I want to talk about, share with you this morning, are a few of the lessons I have learned as a franchisor, then as a volunteer with Hudson Job Search, and finally as a Burton D. Morgan mentor at Jumpstart in Cleveland. I could also talk about Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad, where I served as a trustee and board chair. I could talk about my experiences at Rotary. I could talk about interviewing students from Yale, but those are all other stories. Until I acquired the SRA franchise system, I had always been an employee, and as I progressed through the ranks, a manager of other employees. The one great truth about the employer-employee relationship is that the ultimate cudgel for job performance is the ability to let someone go. Don't do your job, don't do it well, you're fired. Of course, it's somewhat more complicated than that, but you get the idea. The first thing that I learned about franchising, and later about helping Hudson job seekers, and then about providing tough love to startup entrepreneurs, is that none of these individuals are your employees. You cannot tell them to do a darn thing. You can only lead through persuasion and encouragement. The men and women who constituted our franchisees at SRA were first and foremost independent business owners with whom we had a contractual relationship. They too had left the corporate world for a crack at running their own show. As to that contractual relationship, we agreed to provide them access to our proprietary training methods, to acquire the training they and their employees required, to provide full marketing support and offer them use of a proprietary candidate database. They, in turn, agreed to provide us with monthly reports, pay royalties on all the completed searches, do business as Sanford Rose Associates, and make proper use of our trademarks. How well they did at making money and growing their business led to my second discovery, and that is that the top 20% would succeed no matter what we did, while the bottom 20% or so would fail no matter what we did. It was the great middle 60% or so to whom we could bring our skills and our knowledge to help. The only caveat, and this is my third observation, is that those who need your help must be willing to accept it, and I shall explain. After selling the franchise system, I knew it was time to give back to my community here in Hudson, which led to my more recent civic endeavors. As most of you know, Hudson Job Search helps unemployed Hudson residents find new employment. Jumpstart in Cleveland is a so-called business accelerator that provides the human capital and sometimes the financial investment that can help promising startup and scale-up companies achieve their full entrepreneurial potential. Franchise owners, out-of-work executives, and startup entrepreneurs have one thing in common. They can be incredibly stubborn. I would ask our franchisees how many new searches were in the works. I would ask job seekers how much networking they had done in the past month. I would ask the new entrepreneur how many potential customers they had called upon to validate their new product or service. You might not believe how many excuses there can be for not getting down to the basics of success. Thus, in the minds of those least likely to succeed, why go meet with a customer or speak with a referral source when you can spend the days on LinkedIn? Yet, what a wonderful feeling when your efforts pay off. Last year, I was one of 2 Jumpstart mentors, helping the owner of a marketing firm in the area get through the valley of death. That is a period in jargon of the startup world when the realities of needing to have to make a compelling business model and of making a profit begin to sink in. We told her, diversify your client base, eliminate your credit card debt, develop a clear statement of your niche in a very crowded marketplace, and get rid of a problem employee. Amazingly, she acted on each and every suggestion, and today the business is thriving. She thanked not only my fellow mentor and me, but she was also kind enough to send a wonderful testimonial to the man who runs the Burton D. Morgan Mentoring Program. So in conclusion, I have spent at least a portion of the last 25 years or so doing my best to help others succeed, which is not a bad Rotary model. As a well-known saying goes in the franchise world, that in franchising, you are in business by yourself, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Hudson Job Search and Jumpstart provide similar structure and support to the out-of-work executive and to the struggling entrepreneur who has the big idea but little concept of how to bring it to market. Can the task be frustrating? Yes, indeed. Can it be rewarding? Absolutely. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, George. So other than being stubborn, what would you say are some other weaknesses that are shared amongst the folks that you've worked with? And also on a positive side, what are some of the characteristics that make people successful?
I think you have to some degree, at least in the areas I've been talking about, which is franchising, job search, and Jumpstart, at least 2 of the 3 of those are entrepreneurial. You have to have enough of a passion and belief in what you do that you're willing to make personal sacrifice to achieve it. In the case of startup entrepreneurs, That might mean as you're getting your business started or going through a rough patch that you're willing to dig into your 401k plan or borrow against your house. Those are some of the things that real entrepreneurs do. In franchising, there is always the chance that somebody is not out there to create a new business and a new life for themselves, but they're trying to buy themselves a job. And the people who are trying to buy themselves a job because they got fired or because they wanted to leave the company where they worked, they're more than likely to be less successful than those who bring in a true passion for wanting to create a business.
George, did you, when you took on Sanford Rose, I mean, you were running the organization, you were finding franchisees. Were you also in the business of search yourself? I mean, were you running a kind of like your own shop as well, or did you need that experience to be able to speak authoritatively to your franchisees?
The answer to the first part of your question is no, we did. We made a very conscious decision not to compete against our franchise owners.
Okay.
The man who we bought it from, Sanford Rose, had operated his own search business, which created some contention in the system. Were they keeping the best searches for themselves? Were they sharing the information they really ought to with the system? So we made the decision not to do that. Even though I did not come out of the search world, I've worked with probably executive search recruiters much of my life. I've hired a lot of people. The rest of the staff, we had times three very experienced trainers who had been search professionals all of their life. So they provided the hands-on training and the day-to-day support that our various offices required.
And so the model was there, the training model was there, that this is what you tell a franchisee, here's how you run your business. It was already there. Did you have to tweak it very much, or did you put your own fingerprints on that?
Oh, quite a bit.
Yeah.
We tried to do a number, as I said in the remarks I made, that the system at the time we bought it, which is about maybe 40 offices or so, not all those were doing well. Some were really upset with the system, wanted to get out. So we basically tried to rebuild the system. We let some people go who wanted to go. We let them out of their contracts. We went on an aggressive effort to bring in new franchise owners. And what we tried to do then was to build a vision of what was our place in the market compared to our competitors, which included anything from the Park Avenue search firms to a very large franchise operation, which is a direct competitor of ours from Cleveland Management Recruiters. And we decided that we wanted to be the quality model. We did not want to go after mass recruiting. We did not trying to peddle candidates or anything like that. We really wanted to try to be at the very top, the Cadillac or the Rolls Royce of that business. And then in that regard, then you have to provide people with the marketing materials and support they need to go out and sell that vision. So we produced newsletters. We did all sorts of things for our offices.
So you had a base to build on, but you made adjustments to it to get to.
We made quite a few. Quite a few.
Okay. George, you talked about the characteristics of a good entrepreneur. There's a million business ideas out there. In your experience, any particular characteristics that can separate what actually is a viable, good business idea versus what it would not be?
No, there are lots of viable business ideas. Let's talk first of all about in franchises. First, you can franchise virtually anything. McDonald's is a franchise operation, and obviously the search business is a franchise operation. You can buy a Marriott hotel as a franchise owner. You can operate a Mary Maid's cleaning franchise. You can operate a Pure Bar, exercise studio. So there's unending business ideas that work. If you're going to go into the franchising world, what you have to be able to prove is that you can not only create the first successful business model, but you can replicate it. And if you can replicate it, then you've got something you can franchise. The Jumpstart, which is, I'm sort of the outlier in Jumpstart because most of the people that are in Jumpstart are in the high-tech business. I'm not a high-tech person. I'm a service business person, consumer products. So Jumpstart primarily sees a lot of entrepreneurs that think they have the next greatest high-tech idea. they're going to become the next unicorn, which is, that somebody can sell their business to a larger company for $1 billion or more. There are lots and lots of good ideas. The problem is whether or not the market wants those ideas. And the thing that if you're in that kind of business that you preach over and over again is market validation. You've got to get out, talk to customers or potential customers, and find out what they really need. And that's very, and a lot of the people who at least in the high-tech business, get into that kind of stuff, they tend to be techies. They're the geeks. They play with their computer. They've figured out the next great idea. But the idea of having to go out and talk to somebody is something that they don't do very naturally or do very well. And so that's where Jumpstart comes in and tries to provide, I think, a lot of help. Every once in a while you score big. There was a Jumpstart client who had a company called Follow My Meds, and their idea was that doctors, when they prescribe a new drug for a patient, could go into this database that Follow My Meds had and find all of the other medications and drugs that patient might be taking. And that way the doctor could avoid doing something which would have an adverse drug reaction. That was an idea that succeeded exceptionally well, and they were able to sell that company a couple of years later for literally hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it was to IBM. But for every one of those, there are a lot of failures. And we see, Jumpstart, you see all sorts. And their model, by the way, I talked about the 20% are going to succeed no matter what you do, and the 20% are going to fail no matter what you do. Probably at Jumpstart, the odds are more like 80% are going to fail.
George,
Jay,
you brought back great old memories for me of running law firms. I was once told in an annual review that my performance was not up to par because I hadn't fired anybody yet. That was the measure. So my question to you is, how do you evaluate managers, and how do you communicate on an ongoing basis to managers that they are underperforming?
I think number one, you and your managers or whoever, ought to mutually set goals. And if they're not achieving those goals, that you talk to them about that, and you try to find out are they capable of changing or not changing. I grew up at Procter & Gamble. They had a very simple philosophy, which was on-the-job feedback. If you were doing something wrong, you got told about it right away. It was not saved up for your annual performance review. So it was my own, personal managerial style. Is if you see something that you don't think is going right the way you'd like it, talk to that person right at the time. But I think lawyers are, they're sort of like franchise owners, just like herding cats, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, back in the Joe.
Thanks, George. You mentioned that you could look at some business models or whatever that you could immediately see the top 20% and the bottom 20% or something along that line. Is there like would you say it's like a personality trait of the entrepreneur, his or herself, or are there habits that like identify them as being immediately top 20 or bottom 20?
Yeah, if you're the ideal franchise salesman, you're going to try to get that person that you think is going to succeed in your business model. You don't always do that. I talked about stubbornness, and I think that is something that makes people fail in a whole lot of different venues, whether it's franchising or startup businesses or being an employee. If you're not willing to do what it takes to succeed or to follow the system, that's going to be a problem. And as I said to Evan a little bit ago, we did have a methodology, in the case of Sanford Rose Associates, that we wanted people to follow. And if you weren't willing to follow it and do those things that were necessary to achieve your objectives, you're going to fail. The best people in our system, they embraced the system, but they embraced our methodology, but they made it their own. They went out and they got business. They wanted to build their business. They wanted to hire other employees. one of the tests, I think, as I look back, as to who succeeded in our system versus who failed or did not do as well as you'd hope they would do, was the willingness to hire others, to hire other employees. There were a number of people that came out of the corporate world, because that's where we found all of our owners was people who came out of the corporate world. They were then able to take their experience and go back into the industry or the occupation they had come from and recruit. And some of those people were just so fed up with management, or they felt awkward, or they never had been very good at managing other employees. They didn't really want to build a business and have other recruiters and researchers and the people that you have in a real search firm working for them. They just wanted to maybe get on the phone each day and make enough money and say that they could maybe have a $100,000 business. We wanted people who want to have $1 million businesses. But again, it's human nature. As I said earlier, also as I said in my remarks, they were not my employees. So we could practice tough love. We could encourage them. We could try to provide them the tools they needed, but they had to be willing then to take those tools and use them. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I wondered if there was something that you met somebody and you're like, oh, this is not going to work, or oh, you probably don't even really need me. I mean, what was the sort of things that that leapt off from a person? Because there are a lot of people who are really smart who don't do well, and there are other people who aren't very smart at all who are amazingly successful, and so some of them reach the highest levels of all kinds of places.
There's a book.
I'm thinking of myself here. No.
There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink, which is you really form an impression of a person virtually the instant you meet them. And if we were all perfect at that thing, we would be a wonderful judge of character. We'd always get the right people for the right jobs. A number of people are able to talk about what they're going to do in a way that you think, wow, they're going to really be successful, but they're feeding you a line. They're not really going to go out and do all those things that they say they're going to.
I have a quick question about your going global. And the question is, how, if at all, did you have to adapt your approach to address the cultural differences that you encountered?
That's a great question, Mimi. We adapted the U.S. business model quite a. By the time I sold the system, we had about I think 6 overseas offices. I think it's now more than that. We found our first the first place we went into was Singapore. We already member. Sanford Rose was a member of something called the International Franchise Association, and they held an annual conference where people who were thinking about buying a franchise could come to Washington to a big, that big convention center there, and put their toe in the waters, talk to a lot of different franchisors, and see what all the opportunities were. And we went to that conference, and we happened to meet 2 young men of Chinese descent, Norman and Edwin, who had both worked for American companies in Singapore. One was with McKinsey, and the other was with a large accounting firm. And they wanted to they wanted to go into the search business. And the appeal to them of wanting to just start a search firm was that there was a lot of prejudice in Singapore. It's a very, very, very British kind of place. That if you were just a native Singaporean, of Chinese, probably of Chinese or Malaysian descent, you were going to be maybe looked down upon by those people who ran these large companies who you were going to try to recruit for. So we by being a U.S. corporation, gave Norman and Edwin a cachet that they otherwise would not have had. They were very ambitious people. They I wish I could have had 100 of them. They really wanted to build a large business. They did build a large business. They were, in some ways, they were constantly on the phone with us, complaining about something. But but on the other hand, we encouraged each other, I think, to do our best, and they built quite a business. And one of the great thrills of my life was, the franchisor-franchisee relationship is always somewhat tense. We try to make it as less tense as possible and to have excellent communications. But to some degree, you are the person that they're having to send money to that they really don't want to send money to. And so when Norman and Edwin opened their office in a rather prestigious Singapore high-rise, they called and they asked me to send them something that I just about fell out of my chair. They wanted a large color photograph of myself that they could place in the reception area. I had never been asked that by any other franchise owner in my life. And the reason, and I sent it to them, and the reason they wanted it was because I was the great white father, you know. That demonstrated that they were part of a U.S. franchise system, search business. So, and as quickly as I noticed, we're getting on to 8:30. Thank you for your.
Hey, one more, and this relates to after your retirement. It sounds like you keep a very busy schedule even today, and I'd like you to share why you stay so busy and what impact that has on your life.
I not to sound flip, but I think it keeps me from getting old. I just like to be busy. My wife Nora, who many of you know, continues to work in Cleveland for a crisis communications firm. She likes what she's doing, and if I were just sitting around at home doing nothing, I think I would go crazy. But I like being involved in things, and I try to find them, and stay as busy as I possibly can. Thank you all. Thank you, George.
So Nora is very busy and very hardworking and very successful. And yeah, I think, George, you'd be pretty embarrassed if she came home every night and you didn't have anything to say what you did that day. So I'm sure that's a motivation too. Hey, I see we have someone with us this morning that wasn't mentioned as a guest this morning, but I wanted to call attention to Genevieve. There she is. So I looked over there to see her. Genevieve, say hi to everybody. Genevieve, I guess you're back visiting. Genevieve, you're out in Connecticut most of the time now. And are you at Yale? Is that where it is? George, connection there. All right. There are decent Yale people in the world. Jenna, that's a private joke between Den and me. But Genevieve, it's great to have you back. I chuckle a little bit. For a long time, it was Chuck. Chuck is Genevieve's husband, because Genevieve was the member of the club and everything. Oh, Chuck is now we have Chuck as an official member of this club, and this is Chuck's wife, Genevieve. So, welcome back. Everyone, please say hello to her. Let's see. I think the thing that clicked with me a little bit this morning, when I thought a little bit more about this whole subject of vocational service. The slogan this year, Rotary Connects the World, is one that I think really fits in well with vocational service. And I think where that is we all come in contact with young people or people who maybe not as young, but are looking for career guidance, advice, etc. And we all are in a position, we all have huge networks of people we know who are in various fields, and we have an opportunity to make those connections for those people. This is, Jim Ahern would be saying an hallelujah, right, an amen right now to this. I think we all have an obligation to do what we can to make those connections. We could do that for Abby and Evan. I think that's one of the things that being about Rotarian, that's something that I think we have an opportunity and an obligation to do. All right, number 3. Next week we're hearing from our very own Donna Kastner, and she is going to be. Let's see, Donna, if I have this, your speaking entitlement is The Bridge, Fostering Richer Dialogue Across Generations. I'm dying to hear what that's all about, and I think we all are, so please be here next week to hear from Donna. And Let's see. And also, the best way to grow membership, bring a guest. So bring a guest to listen to Donna next week. It'll be worthwhile. Finally, we have a board meeting after this. I mentioned that before. And all Rotarians are invited. And let's see. Now we have Rhoda Block. George, are you a player this week? Not a player, okay. All right. And the last four digits are 2805. All right. Lynn, I have $14 for you and an opportunity to win $192. I think that's what that says. Black marble. Good luck. Oh, I'm sorry. Next week, try again. All right, everyone. As I said, board meeting after this. Is there anything else for the good of the club? If not, this meeting is adjourned.